Hey, this is Not the Girl Next Door show, and today I have a good Rogering with us with Skunk Manhattan. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about the band.
Sure, yeah. I'm Skunk Manhattan. Good Rogering's a band I co-founded actually with my brother about 10 years ago now. And we have a couple albums out. We put out an EP last year, had a few roster changes. And the current lineup, we put out This Is Death Metal last year and did an East Coast tour on it. And just in the studio now, working on some new material. Just released a single right after Halloween or somewhere in there, October 30th, I think, or maybe right before. So that's out right now. And, yeah, playing a couple of shows. We're going to be opening for Marty Friedman in San Antonio January 30th. We have just a couple other shows on the calendar right now since we're in the studio, and I'm going to put a lot of focus on my festival, Skunk Fest. It'll be my second Skunk Fest, June 29th in Austin. So yeah, that's kind of what I got going on with Good Rogering right now.
So just for a second about the festival, will a Good Rogering be playing there, or what kind of mix of bands will you have playing at the festival, or is that to be decided?
That's a good question. So last year went really well, and you know it's tricky because I loved all the bands we had last year, and obviously I can't have them all back. So it's kind of deciding who's coming back. So there'll be a few bands returning. Most likely a Good Rogering will play. I've got a few, and we'll either headline or I may put someone after us. But I've got a few bands in mind that could possibly do that. It just kind of depends on scheduling and what accommodations, etc. Yeah, it was funny because last year a lot of the bands obviously are bands I played with or toured with or whatever. So we had a few out-of-town bands. Most of them were local. And but I hopped on. A lot of the guys were like, you know, one of my favorite bands is Faith No More, and I'm really huge on all kinds of Mike Patton stuff. And some friends of mine from San Antonio that played, like they cover a Faith No More song, and I was like, oh man, I got to hop on stage for you guys for that. And then another band that played was like, hey, do you know the band Tomahawk? Would you want to do it? I'm like, oh, absolutely. Well, anyway, long story short, and I played with two bands, so I think I was on stage like 5 times in bands, and like just about killed myself, like literally. And then I did 2 back-to-back. I played a metal band called RuneScarred that's fairly new as well, and so we did a set, and that was their debut show actually, and it's sort of a debut EP release show for them. We had a couple other bands that were releasing material, and but I did a full set with them. And then back-to-back, then I did a Good Rogering where I'm playing guitar and fronting it. Of course, so I'm on stage consistently for a good close to 2 hours there on the lights and and we had a sponsor from this company, Juiceland, and that saved my life. Because after those 2 sets, I went backstage and basically was standing there with a gallon of beet juice, just reviving myself. But yeah, so I it's sort of like this balance of like. What bands do I think will fit best? I mean, it's a rock-based show. I don't like it to, rock metal, but I don't like it to just be full-on, Cookie Monster death metal or anything like that the whole time. So I kind of rev it up. We kind of started it with some more chill-type rock and then got into the metal stuff at the end. So I'll probably do something similar to that. And then, if I can get a bigger name or, obviously I want to get whatever makes sense, for this, and I want to keep growing the festival. So it's still kind of undecided as to who's going to be the headliner, and then how much pressure I'm going to put on myself out of the 5 different bands that I play in. So,
do you really play in 5 bands?
I've got a few. I Good Rogering's obviously my main band. I'm playing a lot of shows with this RuneScarred band right now, and they've been getting really good press. Their music's awesome, And then there's just some other guys that I do some kind of one-offs, some bands that I like that I do some stuff. And then I've produced different stuff and played, so a lot of the guys that I've kind of just worked with in various capacities, like, hey, what about Skunk Fest? And I'm like, well, you do realize if, I do this to everybody, I'm pretty much going to be on stage all night, and I just can't do that. I mean, yes, Skunk Fest, but I don't want it to be that much Skunk Fest,
Definitely. So how did you guys all meet up in Good Rogering? How did you guys come together?
It's just one of those really funny things. You know, so several years back when we released our second album, Lifeblood, at the time it was my brother and I, and then he ended up getting married and moving to San Francisco. So that was kind of like a definite, I never saw the band as done, but it was definitely like a huge shift, you know, because that we were the core writers and kind of been the consistency of the band. There's been a few different drummers and whatnot, but when that happened, there was definitely kind of a moment where nothing was really going on there. And so then I was doing just some, you know, I think I played bass in another band for a little bit. I was producing a few bands. So this one band that I produced, I think there was actually, funny enough, I feel like there was a miscommunication where they had asked me if I wanted to play guitar in their band, and I was like, I'm not really doing much right now unless it's like a touring thing or something. But the bass player had always been a fan of a good Rogering, and he'd always come to our shows. A super cool guy, was always up front headbanging, and he would help us, you know, with gear on stage. Just always like really, really cool, super supportive guy. Became a good friend. And so when him and his band were in the studio, I guess somehow me jamming with them turned into like, well, what's going on with the good Rogering? And next thing I know, we were like, oh, well, let's screw it. Let's get in the room and play some good Rogering tunes. Why not? You know? And just around that time, so it was him and a drummer, and just around that time, Rick Lambert, who you had mentioned earlier, from Trail, was new in town, and I think he had seen. We had actually met in a really funny way. I was headed out to L.A. and I was dropping my car off at I was flying back in, and I had my car out at a friend's studio, and Rick was out there tracking some drums for an early album. I guess an album he released a couple of years ago, an Empty Trail album. And we just met super quick in the studio. Oh, hey, blah, blah, blah. Oh, nice to meet you, whatever. And then a few weeks later, a month later or something, he actually works where I work. But he like worked right next door. And I was like, I was at this place getting coffee, and he walks up and he's like, hey, are you Skunk? And we started talking. And, so asked about a good Rogering and this and that, and expressed interest in that. So then he jumped on board his guitar, and then we just kind of took off. I was under the mindset at the time, like, well, I had, I had established the band. I had some albums. I had merchandise, and I was like, okay, if nothing else, I'll go try this out and play a few shows, and I can sell some stuff. You know, it's just like I hate sitting on stuff that I work so hard to do. And we got in the rehearsal room, and things like really exploded. Like it felt great. So I just started booking the band, and one thing led to another. We got in the studio, and then it's really kind of relit the fire for me. And then there was a lot of material that actually my brother and I had written several years back that now I'm reviving and actually finally recording. So it's been a fun, interesting process. And then kind of like what we were talking about a second ago, pre-interview, you know, I took it out on the road and learned a lot of new things. You know, just been kind of learning as I go.
And was it you and your brother that came up with the name in the beginning for a good Rogering, or explain the name and how you came up with the name of the band?
Yeah, it's one of those ridiculous things where we were throwing ideas around and nothing was really sticking. And then I think it was my brother that said, because I had gone to England several years ago with and done some recording with a buddy of mine over there, and I had it's like a 50-50 thing of people that know what a good Rogering means, that know the slang term. I'm assuming you're aware, or no?
I don't think I do. I think I may have heard it before, but I don't think I know. No.
So a good Rogering slang for, you know, a good shag, a good lay.
Yeah, right.
Right. A good Rogering. So I'm over there. I'm hanging, and I'm actually sick, and my friend's parents are like hosting this little get-together party and everything, and they're like, hey, come downstairs and have a drink or whatever. And I'm like, okay. And I go down there, and I'm just at the bar, and then I'm just like shoved up against, someone just grabs me from behind, shoves me up against the bar, and it's this little Welsh guy, and he's like, looks like someone needs a good Rogering. So, like, whoa, what's going on? Anyway, they explained that the Rogering, it was just always this joke I told, right? And we're just sitting there one day, and my brother's like, why don't we just call the band a good Rogering? I'm like, all right. And so I Google a good Rogering, and like much to my surprise, there's not some English porn site already, taken. So I did rogering.com and then spend the next 10 years going, is this the stupidest thing that I ever could have done to myself or no? Like, people are going like, you'll never get signed with a name like The Good Rogering. Like, that's just the worst thing. So here's the thing, though, that's happened to me, okay? Like, for a while, I'd have a few buddies in bands, like, going like, that's a terrible name. Like, I see a good friend of mine the other night at his birthday. He's just like, every time he introduces, this is Skunk. He's a great guitar player. But, I mean, he's way too generous with this compliment. Oh, best guitar player in Austin. Great. Horrible band name. But and all this kind of stuff. But recently, I have been told by multiple rock star, alumni that they think The Good Rogering is a great name. So, you know what? I'm sticking with it. I finally decided The Good Rogering is a great name, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, you should. It's been a while, right? Like, how long have you guys been together and been using the name?
Yeah, I mean, we started. I think the concept of it, because when I was playing this band called Quarter Shackle, and we had done an album, and that was kind of imploding. And but I had always, like, as soon as I joined that band, I was like, hey, I'm always going to have my own thing. I always want to have multiple projects, and so originally with my brother and I, the bass player from that band, who's a guy I work with in various projects now as well, like he was kind of the first guy in, and we found a drummer, and then, like I said, there was a few roster changes and this and that, but that, I think the concept of it maybe was late 2007. We started kicking ideas around the next year, and then the first EP we got together and did was 2010, or maybe a little before, but I put it out, I think, January of 2010. So from the time it started, I guess we're about at the 10-year mark right now.
Yeah, so now it's stuck.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I'm invested this much. I feel like, and I've got, it took us a long time, too, to sort of, like, brand it, and I don't even know if, like, because I say that, and it's still pretty eclectic. Like, for example, I don't know how familiar you are with the material, but we had the sort of the parody-based, this is death metal tune with the animated video, kind of over-the-top video,
right,
for our last EP, which is kind of it's a hard rock type EP, but then that.
Yeah, and I wanted to discuss that because, you go ahead, because I have some questions about that too. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and then our and then the next song, the single now is more of a kind of acoustic, early 90s vibe or something. It's the introspective acoustic rock, so it's I started describing the band as eclectic heavy rock, and one of the greatest compliments I've gotten over the years at shows, though, is when people go, I'm not like a huge metal fan, but I love you guys because it's such a mixed bag of stuff, and it's really entertaining, and it's you can't pinpoint it. And I even had a guy last night, like a producer, engineer guy, telling me that, it's like not something you can totally pinpoint, which is good, like, so it's, I don't know how much of your own thing, like, you can possibly be, or how, originality at this point, I don't know, but I think it's a blend of a lot of different things that sort of found its wings, kind of, like it has been, and I feel like I've got it in a place now, especially with the new material, like I'm finding a cohesiveness with it that I really like, and I think that really represents the sound of the band, and everything that we've done, like, I like, it's all different, and some of it's kind of scatterbrained, but it all still somewhat makes sense together. Having said that, I've got another single with, like, horns on it and stuff that's like a funk song, so that's a huge curveball too, So it's kind of like we're a hard rock and heavy metal band, but you never know what might come out,
And that's the thing is I saw on Facebook you guys kind of self-described as an eclectic, rock, hard rock, metal band, and the songs that you had sent me, it is, because I wanted to say, like, okay, so Care for a Rat in the Face, and then 5 Ministries, and then the current one, Out of Reach. They're so totally in different directions. I mean, it is an eclectic mix. And we discussed it, I know, beforehand, and you had just mentioned that every single one of those songs have one thing underlying, and there's some sort of 90s, you take some 90s flavor and you throw it into them, whether it be the guitar riffs, the lyrics, the vocals, no matter what it is, there's 90s flavor. So I take it that '90s music is '90s metal or rock was a huge influence on you. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's when I started playing, and for me it was like at the my teenage years, like where I started playing was like right when all this really cool, the early '90s happened, and it was just like, whoa, like that. I think from like 90 to 92 or whatever, it was just like insane, like how many great albums came out. You had the Metallica Black album, you had the Guns N' Roses Use Your Illusion albums, and Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, and Nirvana, and it's just like it was just an insane time for music. Faith No More, like, and these are all just huge influences for me, And so I've kind of like I started really getting into music and playing guitar like when these things were starting to happen.
Yeah.
But then I was also going back, like what really made me want to play guitar, like if I could pinpoint it, was when I heard right around that same time was when I heard Appetite for Destruction for the first time. And I was like, it was really ironic because I had grown up with my parents had a handful of cassette tapes, and they were all like good classic rock, greatest hits of the Doors, Fleetwood Mac, Rumors, Beatles, Sgt. Pepper, this kind of stuff. It was good stuff, Elton John, but it's kind of stopped there, and it was like, and then it was like, oh, MTV's bad, but Iron Maiden worships the devil. I mean, all that crap that was going on in the '80s, and and heavy metal, satanic, and Ozzy, and all this ridiculous nonsense. and then I find out, and then I start getting into this stuff. I'm like, so, literally this kid brings over a cassette tape of Appetite for Destruction, and I'm just like, oh, is that heavy metal? Like, what is that? Oh, gosh, crazy noise. And then I kind of listen to it, and then I dub the tape, and then I'm, riding my bike all over the, for the next several months doing nothing but listening to this album, obsessed with it. And then I want to start playing guitar, and so it really kind of that just shifted everything for me. And then I went back and I got into the the classic old '80s Metallica stuff, and all these started finding all these metal bands. And so it was a mix of getting into the old thrash heavy metal stuff of the '80s, and then that new grunge movement of the '90s is just an influence for me that stuck and probably defines me above all others. Even though the older I get too, more and more I listen to lots and lots of jazz nowadays. I mean, I've played classical piano for years and years, so there's a lot of I like old country stuff, blues. There's all these different things, but I think that impact that style and that time had on me when I started playing is definitely stuck and probably represents, if you could pinpoint an underlining factor through the band, that would be it.
Do you think it's hard for fans, though, that have started from the beginning with you guys to follow that progression of sound? Or I wouldn't even call it a progression, because it doesn't necessarily mean that your old stuff was great and then the rest is not. But to start at a certain sound and to have, like you said, to add elements to it, and like you said, you want to add some funkier stuff to it and things like that. Do you think fans like that? Do you think they follow, or do you think whatever generally you guys put out, they're going to gravitate towards it because you guys are who you are?
Well, I think anyone who knows the band and has become a fan is definitely gonna dig it, because they know that's the unexpected is expected.
Right.
But I think with other people, I think there's been these different generations of the band, almost like trial runs or something. But having said that, I really like the material. Like, our first EP was done live in the studio, meant to be a demo, and then it was really my first big run at production, and I sort of crafted it after the fact, and brought in a few guest people and took it to another studio, mixed it and did this and that, and then I've sort of, every time I've worked a little bit differently and learned more. And I think there's been almost like these different pockets of fans that we had at that time, but then the band would sort of go away and then come back. And I think over the last couple of years has been the first time that I would really, to me, this is the band, and this is where the sound of the band is going, and I think we've had the best response. Although it's weird, because there's a lot of people that like certain songs, like Rat in the Face and Another one, the second track off that album, Under the Gun, and those always tend to get a good response. So it seems mixed. Like there's different people that like different stuff. So it seems, if everyone was just like, oh, I love this one song only, you know what I mean? Like, but different. It's kind of all over the place. I think the least amount recognized material is probably our first EP, but it's been awesome because for a long time the band ended up just being a trio. And then in recent years, it's been 4 of us, and then sometimes even bringing in a keyboardist or, another guitar player for a tune. So like this year, Skunk Fest, like I had the last track on the Lifeblood album is called Silent Lantern. This big, epic 9-minute thing. It's got keys, and it's got all, big guitar hero moment and all this. And so to finally be able to perform that with, a band that could do it justice, it was great to put that back out there. And one of my favorite Good Rogering songs is a song called Stop Scratching that never got played for years and years, and we've resurrected that. So we're kind of bringing back a lot of in my mind, like classics to me, because I always loved them, but no one else had really ever heard them, So we're kind of bringing back a lot of this old material in the live set, but as the band moves in a new direction. So it's, I don't know, the mix to me kind of makes sense. I think it all works together pretty well.
And you're definitely onto something because, back in the day, we'll say 10, 20, 15 years ago, people went out and even speaking for myself, actually, when CD releases would be released, I'd be spending my last $10 on that new CD that it dropped, and that's how it would be. And nowadays it seems like bands are going more with EPs or just releasing single by single by single, because I think the attention span of people isn't what it used to be. They may like one song from a band. They may like one song from a different band or 2 songs from a different band. So like, you're onto something, because that eclectic mix of, differences between the music, I mean, that may be what brings everybody to, your milkshake may bring the boys to the yard with that, because, I mean, everyone's attention spans aren't what they were back when you were focusing on that one CD or that one release.
Oh, I know. And it's been so hard for me to sort of deal with that next, because I'm such a conceptual album kind of guy. Like I love the Pink Floyd, the Abbey Road, that you have to sit there and listen to the album from start to finish. So for me to just be like, oh, because in my mind, I think that the good news is I've got such a sort of back catalog of ideas and material that and over the years you can kind of come back to something. Sometimes it's not a bad thing for something to sit around for a while, and you can come back and go, okay, these songs that were written around they're a collective body of songs that needs to be together. They work together. And then other stuff you go, I've had this song, I've never really found a home for it. Maybe it can just be a one-off, and you sort of can kind of go categorize. You go, this doesn't really fit anywhere else, but I'll put it out as a single, and it kind of maintains some interest. Like, and that used to be really hard for me to just go, like, because I always wanted to have a collection of songs, but you're right. I mean, the thing has totally changed. I mean, and it doesn't matter. It's like, even if we grew up that way, you and I, whoever, I mean, it's the same thing. I'll watch, 3 seconds of something on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, okay, next,
Yeah,
that's how we are. So it's sort of, I think there's a balance of going, okay, I'm going to have, and learning to be okay with this, to go, okay, right now I'm putting out this one song for this purpose, which I've never really thought of it like that as a songwriter. I just sort of write. I don't really tend to think about, I'm trying to write a hit song, or I'm trying to write this, or I'm trying to write that. But sometimes, the longer you do it, you just go, oh, well, hey, what do you know? There's another song with a verse and chorus and a hook, and it's 4 minutes long. And you just sort of get good at, you come to understand why these things are what they are, because you just, as a musician, you just end up doing that, I think, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with a great 3-chord song that's 3.5 minutes long and works the radio. And then other times it's like I'm, in the kitchen at 4 a.m. banging on pots and pans, and and that's music in my mind. But that's not an ideal single.
Right.
So you kind of have to go, okay, cool, I've got this, and I think this can be I'll put this here, and then this will work for this, and then this collection of songs I'll hold off on, and that'll be my weird eclectic whatever. And then in terms of a good Rogering, I think it's just, it's sort of been established in this sense of like, I don't know how far off I would want to stray. Like a Good Rogering does a country album, but I think there's definitely a certain amount of freedom where anyone who's acclimated with the band, they're not going to be super shocked when we go out on a limb. And I always bring this band up, Faith No More. It's just one of my all-time favorite bands, and they're one of the. I think what they did was like, it's kind of like, in my mind, it's like what the Beatles did. They went through all this new territory, and they still, they're the Beatles, so they maintained this like gigantic popularity as they were doing it. But they started out, pretty poppy, whatever, and then they just went everywhere. They just wrote the book on what you can do in a studio and where pop music can go. And for me, like Faith No More did the same thing in like the 90s. Like they got mainstream success and got sort of defined as funk metal or whatever, and everybody who doesn't know the band, know their catalog, goes, oh yeah, You Want It All, oh yeah, that song. But you're like, no, that's like one thing, right?
Right.
There's a lot of great bands, obviously, but then you go dive in and you're like, oh my God, it's just all over the place.
Right.
But there's some thread of that makes it okay, that you're like, oh well, that's Faith No More, that's just what they do, And so I think that kind of influence to me is just, I can't get away from it. And so it's like, that's why there's just a classical piano piece, randomly on a metal album, because it's just sort of like, well, I just wrote this and here it is,
Right.
So I don't know. I think what's coming next, though, other than the potential funk single, is definitely, I think, now, is it going to be an EP or an album? I don't know yet, because there's several songs and we're sort of recording a few at a time and just seeing what's gonna, what works the best. But I think it's, to me, like the most cohesive work so far. Like, and I'm really excited about it, because I think there's just going to be this nice flow to it that maybe we haven't had before.
Definitely understandable. Now, just go back to the fans for a minute. Explain to people who have never been to a Good Rogering show what kind of show you put on. I watched some of your videos or live performances, concert videos, and you guys have a pretty heavy, high-energy show. So talk about what fans can expect that have never been to one of your shows before.
Yeah, high energy. It's evolved over the years. We used to have some gimmicks and goofy things we did, and now it's I don't know, like I get ideas, and sometimes something will just come out of left field, and sometimes there's some improv moments, so there's always an element of surprise or potential surprise. And even like it just back to the energy thing, like for me, I guess when I start playing, like which is great, so even if I'm in a mindset of like, I don't really feel like saying much tonight, I'm just going to play this song, it never happens. I just, like, my hat goes flying off and I start going crazy, and it's just, that's just what the music does, and the band is just on 10, and it's just hopefully that transcends and people get that, because I think that's such a huge thing. And I played in bands, and you can tell when the synergy of the band is not there, and when there's problems with it, or when they're not feeling the music. And even if you're playing something like, you can, and so for me, it's like, especially for this kind of like raunchy, I don't know, like it's metal, but it's not like technical metal. It's rock and roll metal, it's that Guns N' Roses, like it doesn't have to be perfect. There's an element of like the non-perfection is you know what I mean, like part of it. And so the band is tight. We played a lot together. So that's what's funny too, is people like, God, you're so tight, and I'm like, oh God, wow, we haven't even rehearsed in like 2 months. But it's like we really like put in the time. We did a tour, and I think that got us really pretty sharp. So then now we're like, okay, we got this show. Everyone's super busy. There's a lot of things going on for everybody in the band. So we get together. What's the set going to be? Cool. We get together. We do a rehearsal, and then we're ready to go. And then every now and then, that's sort of like I like throwing in curveballs, because it keeps it interesting to me. And I guess I'm just not wired that way to go out and play the exact same polished show all the time. And maybe that's, I don't know, maybe it's frustrating for the band, or maybe it's weird for other people, but that's how I am. So
I wouldn't think so. It looks like it's along the same lines, of the music, and It goes together.
Yeah, and the good news is we all share we're all very open-minded, and we also share very common musical interests that are at our core, you know.
Right.
And so it's like if we're like, hey, we're doing this show, and I think, you know, a Megadeth cover would be really cool. You know, there's usually like oh yeah, right on, cool, you know, and it's just and then we've kind of paid homage to, and that's the difference between, you know, being in a cover, because I've had some opportunities to be in a cover band, and I'm looking at the set list, and it's like Sweet Child of Mine, crazy, oh sweet, and then it's like something else, and I'm like, I just can't do this, you know, I just don't resonate, you know, and so I love playing, you know, paying homage to bands that I love, you know, and they don't always have to even be blues or rock bands, you know, like we did on our first EP, we do a cover of a Bjork song, you know, and but I think that's just a cool thing, you know, you just kind of throw that out there. Crowds that we all know they're going to respond to, you know, cover song, you know, we're all helpless when someone starts playing a Metallica riff, you know, we have to respond to it. So, but it's you know, everything from Guns N' Roses to Metallica to, you know, Alice in Chains or whatever. It's like just playing those, you know, once in a while, and it's different. It's not like the same thing every time. So I think having some of those in your back pocket, and you can kind of throw out something new, a new twist here and there, is really cool. And then, like when we did Halloween, we did a couple of sort of Halloween-based theme songs, and you know, I just like sprinkling little topical things and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm sure it makes it's going to make a connection with the fans as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was kind of talking about that too. Like the energy. It's the what's the word I'm looking for? It's not tangible, you know, but you can feel it. You know when it's there. And I think a fan, like, or you know, whether it's someone watching me or me watching someone else, like you can feel like when that's coming from a real place, you know, and connect, as opposed to a sort of going through the motions. And they're different things. I don't think there's one right or wrong. I mean, like sometimes we go to a show and we watch a band, and the point of that band is that it's a flawless technical presentation with a very, you know, artistic, maybe there's something visual happening too, and that's kind of what you're watching. And other times you're watching this raw sort of in the moment, you know, anything could happen rock band, and I think that's just kind of more how a good Rogering tends to be live. Very in the moment, you know.
So as a response from the fans, do you guys have any crazy fan stories or show stories that you can tell us about that may have happened through the years, some kind of craziness?
Well, like if I talk about my crazy fans and then they hear this, I wonder if they're going to know that they're one of the ones that are crazy. Do the crazy ones know they're crazy? I don't know.
Maybe.
There's definitely a few crazy ones out there. But I mean, most I mean, they're just great. That's why I do it. I love it. Like it just makes. That's why I live. You know, like the connection with those people, and it just means the world to me. Like every time someone's up there rocking out with us, singing along. I mean, yeah, when you see people singing along, that's really cool. People coming up and just talking to you, wanting to have your merchandise. You know, just any kind of compliment. So. I mean, I can't say enough good things about any, you know, of our fans over the years. Let's see. I mean, there's been, I don't know. One thing that pops in my mind right now, just because you know, Facebook will give you the whole this memory thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I shared this thing on our fan page the other day that was like. It's like, this was an interesting mosh pit. So we played I think it was a Christmas show a couple of years ago, and there were all these guys in there from India, I'm assuming, and I think they were maybe on vacation, or I don't know what the deal was, but anyway, they clearly did not understand the concept of moshing. And it was really funny though, because they were awesome. They were so into the music, but we were like just rocking out, like just metal rock. And these dudes are all like this huge group of these guys is all up front dancing around, like in the most non-metal, I don't know what kind of dance it was, but it was just funny. You know what I mean? But it was awesome. It's like, hell yeah, man, this is cool. You guys are cool. You're up here just having, like, of all the bars, they're just down there on 6th Street hanging out. They pop into this place, a random metal show. I'm sure none of those guys knew who we were. Right. And they're just up there having great time, you know, and that was just cool. And it's those experiences, like, that's what it should be all about, you know. It doesn't matter. And, like, music should transcend everything, and it does, you know. When done right,
Definitely.
it does. And so, yeah, and I don't know, I could go on and on and on about all kinds of goofy things probably, but that was a fun night.
Yeah, they were feeling the music, just not in a way that we're used to seeing or used to doing ourselves. So definitely, you were reaching them just in a different way.
It was a wonderful dance.
I'm sure. So what does A Good Rogering have going on for the rest of 2018? Up into 2019, what are our plans? Like, I know you said that there was music that you were going to release, but you weren't sure yet. But what else do we have going on? Any festivals, concerts? I mean, anything that you guys have going on?
So for the rest of this year, finally, I am gig free. I think today's Friday, isn't it? I think I have a gig tonight. Not with A Good Rogering, but yeah. So I have, and I think that's my last show of the year. And then I don't know. Actually, there's been some talk of doing a New Year's show with somebody, but yeah. So I'm kind of it's all about studio stuff for me. We're doing bass tracking for a couple of tunes, Good Rogering tunes Sunday, I think. So yeah, we've got like I said, we've got some new stuff that we finally have. You kind of have thrown it out at a few rehearsals. Not really, you know, I don't feel like it's really ready to come out live yet, but possibly we're playing a show in San Antonio opening for Marty Friedman January 30th, so we may have some new material for that one. And, yeah, so I think at least getting a couple of songs done. I'm at least going to do an EP. It's right now it's between, do we want to go 4 songs or do we want to go 4 more songs and do an album, you know? So that's kind of where it's at right now. But either way, we'll probably put out at least something early next year. And then I just got this, you know, there. So I just have to tell you about Mr. Peanut. Mr. Peanut is this cat, right? And he was kind of our mascot for a while. And through Mr. Peanut, there's this whole rabbit hole of other, you know, alter egos of mine and all kinds of crazy things. But anyway, there was this super awesome cat that my brother's girlfriend at the time, now wife, had. And he was like, man, this cat's so cool, we should write a song about it. So I wrote a song called Mr. Peanut. It's a funk song. And we released it years back with the video and everything, but it was just kind of lo-fi done, you know, with MIDI instruments. And so then I was like, I always wanted to redo it. Went back in the studio, had our drummer lay down live drums on it, brought in horns and did it upright. And I've just been sitting on it because I'm like, do I want to release this with the current video or how do I want to do this? And I don't know. And then back to the like eclectic nature of the band, like this is like a whole new level of curveball, right? So
right.
Am I going to put this out or what? So there may be a Mr. Peanut single, but I just don't know. And that's terrible PR on my part. But, yeah, you know, that's maybe some weird, wacky Mr. Peanut Christmas holiday single will happen.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah, you know, and I feel like that would be good. Everybody loves cats, you know. It's a holiday. It's cheerful. So maybe we'll just throw Mr. Peanut out there for in a happy holidays. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
And see, that's it's a perfect mix because I see really crazy cat videos shared more than music.
I know. Well, I didn't know. I was so naive back the first round. I was like, oh, well, here's a funny story. Like, so the first time we put that out, I'm just like, we got pretty good traction, but I was just like, you're kind of like, you know, and I'm not saying things don't go viral without putting money behind it either. But I was like, I didn't even like realize that like advertising on YouTube was a thing. I think we put it out in 2011, you know, and it was just like, you know, it's got 2,000 hits, whatever. It's been sitting around, and now I'm like, okay, if I do this again, I mean, we got our band, we got a killer funk song, and it's got cat in it. Like, how can this not work, right?
Right.
So, I'll try to advertise it a little bit. You know, I'll try to put a little money behind it, which the funny thing is I was finally like that with our last did you see the video for This Is Death Metal, by the way?
Yes. I saw it on I saw it on your website.
Right. Okay, cool. So that was a really interesting thing, that the whole reason that happened was I had gone out to San Francisco. Finally made it out to San Francisco, which I love. I'm a huge West Coast guy. Back in the 90s, grunge scene, Seattle. I love that whole Pacific Northwest region. But I had never been to San Francisco, which is a place I just feel like I've always resonated with. My brother lives out there. It's amazing. I go out there just for a little mini vacation, and this band, do you know who the band Dead Cross is?
I do not.
But that's Mike Patton from Faith No More and a zillion other bands, and then Dave Lombardo from Slayer.
Really?
From Rita. Yeah, just a kind of that all-star cast, kind of, but yet underground type band.
Right.
So we go see them at this little place, I can't remember what it's called, but this cool theater-type place in San Francisco. And, super small world kind of thing. I say, compliment a girl on her typo negative shirt. We start talking. She's like, oh, I'm friends with the guy in the opening band, blah, 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 who turns out to be the artist for Dead Cross. He's the guy that does their videos. And he's really cool dude. His name is Eric Allen Livingston, but he does some, really, weird stuff. I don't know if I'm allowed to say.
You can.
Yeah, he just interesting things. So anyway, through this, I ended up kind of talking with him, and he did the video, and it was we ended up getting it premiered in Metal Injection, and it was just like a super cool accident,
Right.
But yeah, and I think he just nailed it because it's just sort of the lyrics and the song itself is very tongue in cheek, about the whole death metal and
right.
and so what he did image wise with just very vague direction, and he kind of had an idea and I kind of had it, and then he just came back with something. I was blown away, and we gave him some notes, and his second draft, it was just done. It was incredible, and so then I was super excited about this. And of course, I'm finally, yes, I'm really stoked on this. I'm going to advertise. I'm going to put money behind this. Denied. Google denied it. So I couldn't advertise it on YouTube. I couldn't advertise it on Facebook because.
Why?
Well, okay, so one of them said because first the YouTube thing was because of shocking content, right? Okay, I guess. It's animated, but
Right.
So it's weird to me. It's I feel like I'm sure there's videos out there of some rap guy beating a woman and shooting somebody. It's totally
right.
cool because it's $1 million rapper. So, but God forbid an animated unicorn stab somebody. You know what I mean? So
I know, right?
Yeah. So we get denied on YouTube, and then Facebook denies it for nudity, and I'm like, what the hell? What are you? I didn't even know there was nudity. First of all, it's animated.
Right.
And then I'm looking through it, I'm like, and then someone tells me oh no, on that part with that guy, I don't even know there's a name for this, but there's a little animated penis for half a second. So this is my life, so yeah. But I know at the same time I'm well, here we go. It's just more true rock and roll. I can't even advertise my product because it's just so so shocking.
Yeah.
So what I'm gonna. So what? There's the perfect follow-up. Fine. Then I'll put out a cute cat video there. Fine.
See?
Have it your way. Yeah.
Just no nakedness or no unicorn stabbing in it.
I don't know. The cat's naked. I don't know. Am I going to get denied? We'll see.
Well, you better hurry up and do it before the standards change and they get more strict. So
You're right. No animal nudity on YouTube. Boy, they're yeah. Everybody would just stop watching YouTube immediately. Be well, if I can't watch, I was just doing this every time I get on Facebook, I'm okay, I have something I need to do, and then wait, now there's a dog being cute, and then 5 minutes of my day's gone.
I know, and it is a kind of a joke, because, like I said, people use it. I kind of have a cheesy theme at the end of all of my shows where I always tell everybody to spread the love for music and try to get people to spread videos and music and share them, because if you have 5 seconds to share, a game where you find out you were a unicorn in a past life, or a cat that is silly or cute, and you have 5 seconds to share that, well then, why don't you share the music that you listen to, or why don't you share, and I've had people say, well, my friends don't like that kind of music. Well, it's okay. You know what? Who cares? Just share it.
True. Oh, I've gotten the same thing with death metal too. It's oh, well, I can't share it there. And you know what? Fair enough. And it's even with the band name, people I would buy your shirt, but I can't wear this to work. I'm Jesus Christ. Fortunately, we do have these penguin shirts, which is this on our first album is just penguins, and so a lot of amazingly they sell really well. People just, oh my God, cute penguin, and we had all these koozies, and I've sold out of all that. But then, we've got some very adult humor bait. We got the I Heart a Good Rogering, of course, and then we've got some funny kind of stuff and whatever. And it's like there are these great sort of impulse buy shirts, and I think it's also that kind of stuff like you're like, oh shit, I can never wear this to work or to school or anywhere, But and then I guess the death metal thing is kind of the same thing. But I've kind of gotten to that point where I'm just like, I don't give a shit. Most of my family's not on Facebook anyway. If they are, tough shit. That's the whole thing. And that's the whole mindset of what I do with everything in my life now is like, I'm living for me and doing my expressive freedom. And I'm not going to go out of my way to offend people. Like that's
right.
not, all they do is they sit there and they troll and they try to say like horrible, heinous things just to get a rise and to get attention because everyone is so starving for acceptance and attention these days, like, now it's like not just the artist. We're all in that same boat, and you're sort of like caught between like wondering if like, wow, this is really good, or am I just some sick person that needs attention or something? But it's yeah, you're so right, and that comes back to what you were saying about the fans, where I'm just like, when those people like they will share what we've got going on, they share the posts, they share the videos, like thank you, because you have no idea like how much that means these days, especially when you don't have a huge budget pushing something like, every single little thing matters, So yeah, I think there's those kind of people that just they every single thing you do, they want to buy it, they share it, and that's just amazing. Those people are awesome.
Yeah, and I think as we get older too, I mean, especially maybe me, like I would never, like you said, go out of my way to like try and offend somebody. But you know what? If your friends get offended because you're sharing music that you love, then they're probably not really your friends. Because I'm not a country music fan, but if my friend were to say, hey, check this out, and it was on their page, I'm not going to be like, oh, can't believe you're sharing country music and I don't like it.
It's like politics. Like I had a friend do a whole big piece yesterday. He had written something, very well written about. It was kind of satirical, but like basically, oh no, maybe it was a meme, and it was about politics in 2001 or whatever, and somebody would be like opinion, and then the other person's like, oh, I disagree. Oh, well, okay, and then it's like politics 2018 or whatever, and it's like opinion, and then it's like machine gun fire, like you go to war on you go to social media war, and then this whole big thing, and it's kind of the same. It's like, look, just because you have one political opinion and I have another one, or we voted, that's democracy. That's what makes this country great. Yes, it's got a zillion flaws, but it's still a relatively pretty kick place. And it's like, and so these people that just want to like bash that into the ground every chance they get, it's kind of, it irritates me, because this is the whole point. We have the freedom to express that, even if you disagree with it, or even if that person is blatantly wrong. Like, as long as it's not hurting anybody, or directly assaulting somebody, like, you can express your opinion, and you can express your political opinion, you can express your artistic opinion, and so it's like, same here. It's like there are certain songs, if I hear that, I'm like, oh, God, I can't, but I'm not going to, like, delete a friend because they a Toby Keith song or something. It's just like, like, whatever. And the same thing, like those people would probably hear my music and think it was absolute garbage, but that doesn't mean that we can't be friends, and hang out, have a beer or something. Like, so when you start, it's a real slippery slope, when you get into that territory. And it's funny to me how sometimes the Crusaders, like, talking about all these things and how they're so wrong. It's like, well, you're the one perpetuating the problem.
Yes.
So in my mind, as an artist, like, and that's always something that great artists have done too. And it's like, it can be tacky, and I think it can be done in a way that you're sheerly just doing it to get attention. But I mean, guys like, you look at the iconic rock stars and Jim Morrison, Axl Rose, and Ozzy Osbourne, and they're always it's always shrouded in controversy. It's always crazy, but it's also fantastic entertainment, and oftentimes I think, art and music can have just as big an impact, if not more, and comedians too, for that matter, than politics ever can,
Of course.
And moving in social trends and change and all that. So it's those things are the whole reason, culture and, shifts and things happen and move. So when you start denying that, like, that's dangerous, at least in my opinion.
Nope, I definitely agree.
Yeah. I'm all for people sharing their art and whatever, and if you don't like it, that's fine. But yeah, and I've never like gone. And you know, the funny thing is like, and a few people are, oh gosh, this is satanic, you know, this is that, and that's how I was when I was a kid. I was like, oh my God, Ozzy's satanic. Why? Because someone told me so.
Right.
That's why it's funny. That's why it's funny to me now. That's why I make a parody of it, because it's just, and it wasn't my idea to like, hey, let's make this video as satanic as possible. But I gave another artist freedom to do something to my, you know, what I did, and I think the blend of those two things is a piece of art in itself that I'm very proud of, and I think it's great. And you either kind of get the joke or you don't, and it's okay either way. But yeah, I mean, I just, it's just even more humorous to me that I couldn't advertise it.
Well, and I think sometimes Facebook and
through a sense. What's that?
Well, I was just going to say sometimes Facebook, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword because we need it, like artists need it, and we need it to promote. And I know Facebook goes over. I don't know how many times I've been blocked on my own account from, you know, posting or, you know, and I'm not even posting anything. I'm posting music things, so it's not like I'm posting all this craziness that I've seen, you know, others post. So it's kind of like you said. I think Facebook perpetuates those people who want to complain, and then, you know, here you getting blocked for some silliness, you know, that you couldn't share, you couldn't advertise yourself. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. We need it, but
yeah. I also think it's like, you know, I don't want to go down a huge political road, but I also think it's, you know, you're always dealing in hypocrisy in some way, because usually if someone's like, we've got to shut this down and deny that, and this is wrong, and this is politically incorrect, and this is that, and this is that. Well, it's like, says who? Says you. Like, what about the other however 100 million people living? You know, like, I mean, that it's just, you know, you can yell and scream. I mean, there's laws and rules about things for a reason. There's everybody, like any sane, you know, member of society can agree on like, hey, this is wrong. Yes, this should not exist. But anything that's like not crossing those lines is like a freedom of expression, a freedom of opinion, you know, that. So I get it. It's like a lot of topics. It's not always black and white. It can be complex and everything. And so, you know, I'm not going to raise a big stink about the silliness of my one little video. You know, I kind of take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, I just think, you know, honestly, to this whole point, this whole thing we're talking about, you would probably never guess, but in some weird way, I think it makes sense. Like for me, like I actually used to wear a Jack Ripper shirt on stage a lot, and I don't know if you know who that is. I don't think maybe one person ever got the reference of what my shirt was. So do you know the movie Dr. Strangelove?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen the movie though. No.
So I love that movie. It's a great political satire based on, you know, like when the Cold War was first happening, and, you know, the nukes getting launched, and the Soviets, you know, and the whole planet blowing up and all this kind of. But the way it's done, and the sort of the dark humor, you know what I mean? That style I really resonate with, and I really like that. And there's something that I implement that I don't think you would ever see on the surface. You would go, oh, fun, quirky, crazy rock band. But a lot of like lyrics I've actually written, if you really listen to the lyrics, there's sort of, you know, there's a lot of metaphors and a lot of satire that is kind of, I mean, I guess some of it's pretty blatant, like the death metal thing, and then we have a song called Caveman Angry that spells it out pretty clear. But, you know, so it's kind of a joke, but there's also, and for me, I guess where I go with this is like I'm a big Trey Parker fan and South Park and that kind of stuff. And you can sometimes you can basically make a really amazing political or sociological or whatever point through like the most vulgar. So sometimes that's the only way to reach people, you know. And you sort of you disguise it in, you know, toilet humor. But then the subtext is brilliant. The subtext is like, oh my God, that's so freaking true. What a bunch of idiots we are. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think I like to sort of like do that lyrically, you know, sometimes, and those. But a lot of that, you know, so I would never call this a political band. Like that kind of annoys me when someone's just out there like ranting on stage about their politics. But there's certain like things I'll sort of subtly implement that will express opinions of some of these things we've been talking about, you know. Just in censorship and and all this kind of stuff.
Well, definitely. And you can't kind of, no matter what it is, if it's a political, no matter what kind of opinion it is, all music is out there to do that. No matter if you're talking about something that means the world to you, like something as simple as love or relationships, or I mean, there's always something that it's an opinionated thing. So, and that's okay. It's a matter of
Right.
of your perspective.
You're right. Like, yeah, no, seriously, like that should be like my Facebook post. I mean, you've inspired me. Like, I'll like my girlfriend can like remind me because I forget everything. But like, I'll make a Facebook post that says opinions are okay. It's okay to have an opinion. It's okay.
Right. Oh, I understand completely. Well, where can everyone find your music, find your penguins, find your merchandise that they can't wear to work? Where can everyone find that?
Great. I love the way that you totally helped me not sell myself. You reiterated all of that. Hey, go buy shirts you can't wear. They're great. Hey, you know what? That's just your work's opinion that you can't wear that shirt. I say wear the fucking thing.
Right. It's an opinion.
Yeah, your work is wrong. Okay, so best thing, goodrogering.com has got show dates. It's got links. It's kind of got news. It's got, like I said, it's got the death metal video on there. It's got links to the latest single, and then we got all the social media hubs. So Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. I'm probably most active on Facebook, and that's A Good Rogering Band. Facebook.A Good Rogering Band. I'm on Instagram quite a bit too, and so we've got a Facebook page, we've got a Facebook fan page, we've got or a group, I guess is what it is. Our YouTube channel, which YouTube is weird. It's like it's hard to get traction on YouTube for me. I've noticed. So I think for a lot of people now, I think that was like an explosive thing 10 years ago, and now it's like so saturated. You know what I mean? Do you see that too, or? It just seems like there's just so much content, like it's hard to get anything noticed sometimes.
I see it, and I talked about this with a band before. They had said the same thing. They said so they had reached out to like Space Untraveled and stations like that where they post it, and they're just a sharing music video site, or some of those sites on YouTube, redo the video in their own kind of graphics or whatever to fit whatever their theme is, and they get more traction, sharing it that way than the band sharing it themselves, and that's just insane. I mean, I love it. I mean, sometimes I go to those channels to see new music or try to find music I haven't heard before and things like that. But yeah, I think the thing that's gaining traction are sites like that, like sharing sites that share the music more than the band's own channels, and that's odd to me. But
yeah, it's so weird. I'll put something on a Facebook video and it'll get a few thousand hits, and I put the exact same video on YouTube and it's like 3.
Yep.
But it seemed like when we did Mr. Peanut and stuff, like I said, with no advertising or anything, when we did that in 2011, like that immediately got a few thousand hits though. So I've seen that change just in the the last 5, 6, 7 years, whatever. But I'm
sure that push on advertising did that too. The push to advertise.
But when you think about it, it was like back then I didn't use a flip phone, probably maybe an early iPhone, using a video camera and uploading, and then it was this whole process. Now it's like boom, I do a video on my phone right to Facebook. I don't even think Facebook didn't even have videos back then. So
right.
Once that started, obviously that's going to take away from YouTube, and I know Facebook I don't think is they're going to want you to use their platform. So YouTube is a tricky one. So anyone that wants to support us by going and subscribing to Good Rogering videos on YouTube, that would be awesome. I've also got a Skunk Manhattan page on YouTube. But the website, agoodrogering.com, has just kind of the hubs to everything. So whatever a person's platform or choice is, we're on iTunes, Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, and speaking of sharing, the whole Spotify thing. Anyone who's got Spotify playlist and wants to throw a Good Rogering on there, that would be super awesome. I'm just getting into these things. I'm always behind, and now I'm just like, I guess I should start doing this Spotify thing. Like a couple years ago, I was like, we had an Instagram. I think there was like one photo on it for like 5 years, and I was like, I should probably start using this thing. So I think As far as like, now I guess like now this is all old and everyone's snapping each other with dog ears on and stuff, I guess. But like,
yeah.
you know, we're as far as I know, we're like fairly up to date, and all those links are on the website. That's the best way to find us. And speaking of the YouTube thing, just for the hell of it, it'll be up there probably for a limited time, because as soon as I release the new one, I'll probably bury the old one. But there's Mr. Peanut. I encourage you to go. To go do a little investigating and find Mr.
I will
Peanut.
do that.
So, yeah. Nothing else, you get to watch a cute. Yeah, if you're offended by the music, you can turn the sound off and watch a cute cat. And if you're offended by a cat, you can close your eyes and listen to the music. It's always a solution to good Roger.
I will do that. I'm not easily offended, so none of it will be offensive, I'm sure.
And then anyone in the Texas area, Skunk Fest is June 29th. They come and take it live in Austin. It's an amazing venue. They have a lot of national acts come through. I saw Seven Dust there recently, and I mean, they're just like, it's an awesome place. I love that place. So
what's the venue? Where's that?
It's called Come and Take It Live.
Okay.
That's the name of the place. Yeah. It's an awesome place. And great sound, great stage, just great staff. Yeah, super, super cool. We got a lot of cool sponsors coming in for that, and we're actually doing so I mentioned we're doing a San Antonio gig, and then we're playing a thing called Frost Fest here, also in Austin, February 2nd, with a lot of local bands that are kind of like, you know, big name local bands that, you know, bigger touring type guys and everything. So that should be a cool show. It's at Hanover's. It's in Pflugerville, which is one of those places I was talking about where it's like, oh, you live up there? But, you know, we make an exception because we love that place. And it's actually kind of cool. I feel like when you live in Austin, there's the river, and you're like, oh, are you south of the river? Oh, never. You know, there's like these two. So it's almost like if you go to North Austin or Pflugerville or Round Rock, like one of these, which means nothing to anybody who doesn't live here, but it's almost like you're going into a different city. Like you were talking about Chicago, right?
Yeah.
All the different regions around it. So I feel like you can kind of play a South Austin gig, and then you can play something like that, and there's super different demographics anyway, because there's this very like Southern Yankee mentality just within Austin of like, oh yeah, I'm not going down there, or I'm not going up there, you know. So we'll do the South and North Austin thing, doing San Antonio, yeah, and then honestly, like until a new release is ready, then I'll probably look at some kind of, you know, a push on that, and then we'll take it from there. But we're a bit low key and show wise in the meantime. Just happy to be putting some new tracks together. But even just feedback I've gotten so far from the few people that have heard them, it's been like really positive. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be some of our most radio-worthy type material to date.
Well, when you do, definitely hit me up. Come back anytime. I appreciate you coming on the show, talking about the music, talking about everything. And anytime you have a show or even the festival, come back anytime with new music. I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks a lot for having me.